Nobody expected a world champion to stop his car on a random street at 2 a.m. Not the people sleeping in their homes. Not the few drivers passing by. Not even the stranger sitting alone on that cold curb, head in hands, completely broken. All they knew was this Manny Pacquiao had just finished a long day of training, exhausted, ready to go home and rest. And then he saw something that made him hit the brakes. Not a crash. Not a crime. Just a person in trouble that everyone else had ignored. What happened next would be caught on camera, shared millions of times, and remind the world of something we've almost forgotten. That real power isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about who you choose to help when no one's watching. Have you ever driven past someone who needed help and kept going because you were tired, because it felt awkward, because you told yourself someone else would stop? It was late. Really late. The kind of late where the streets go quiet and the city feels like it's holding its breath. Street lights flickered over empty sidewalks. A few cars passed now, and then their headlights cutting through the darkness before disappearing around corners. Manny Pacquiao sat in the back seat of his car, eyes half closed, body aching from another brutal day of training. 12 rounds on the heavy bag, endless footwork drills, sparring that left his ribs sore and his hands wrapped in ice. He wasn't dressed like a champion. No expensive suit, no jewelry, just a simple shirt, comfortable pants. The kind of clothes you wear when you just want to get home and collapse into bed. His driver navigated the quiet streets carefully. Manny stared out the window, watching the city roll by in a blur of shadows and dim lights. This was his routine. Train hard, go home. Rest, repeat. Nothing glamorous about it. Nothing Instagram-worthy. Just the daily grind of a man who'd fought his way out of poverty and never forgot where he came from. The neighborhood they were passing through wasn't rough, but it wasn't fancy either. Working-class homes, small shops with metal shutters pulled down, a gas station with one lonely car at the pump. Normal, peaceful, unremarkable. Manny's phone buzzed. A text from his wife asking when he'd be home. He smiled, typed back a quick reply. 5 minutes away, the driver turned onto a quieter street, residential now. Trees lining the sidewalk. Houses with their lights off, families already asleep, and that's when Manny saw it. A car parked awkwardly on the side of the road. Hood up. Hazard lights blinking weakly in the darkness, and next to it, sitting on the curb with his head buried in his hands, was a man alone. Completely still, Manny straightened up in his seat. He watched as they got closer. The man didn't look up, didn't wave for help. Just sat there like someone who'd run out of options and run out of hope. The driver kept going. After all, it was late. They'd already passed the scene. Not their problem. But something made Manny turn his head and keep looking. He'd seen that posture before. That kind of defeat. The way someone sits when they've hit rock bottom and don't know what to do next. He'd sat like that once. Years ago. In the Philippines. When he had nothing. When every door seemed closed. When he wondered if tomorrow would be any different from today. Most people drove past moments like this every single day. Too busy, too tired. Too worried it might be a scam or too awkward or too complicated. And that's exactly what makes moments like this so dangerous. Because they feel normal. They blend into the background. A broken down car. A person having a bad night. Something you see and forget 5 seconds later. But Manny didn't forget. He leaned forward. Stop the car, he said quietly. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror, confused. Stop. Go back. The car slowed, made a U-turn. Pulled up behind the broken down vehicle. The man on the curb still hadn't moved. Hadn't even noticed them. Manny opened his door and stepped out into the cool night air. No cameras. No fans. No one watching. Just a tired champion and a stranger in trouble. And a choice that most people never make. Manny walked slowly toward the man on the curb. The street was silent except for the hum of his car's engine and the faint clicking of the hazard lights. No other cars. No voices. Just emptiness. The stranger's car looked old, beaten up. The kind of vehicle held together by prayers and duct tape. The hood was propped open with a stick, revealing an engine that had clearly given up hours ago. Manny stopped a few feet away.
Hey,
He said softly. You okay? The man didn't look up, didn't even flinch, like he hadn't heard. Or maybe he had heard but didn't have the energy to care anymore. Manny stepped closer. Sir, do you need help? Finally, the man lifted his head. His face was weathered, tired, the kind of tired that comes from years, not just one bad night. His eyes were red either from crying or exhaustion or both. Mid-40s maybe. Work clothes stained with grease and dirt. He stared at Manny for a second, confused, like he couldn't quite process why someone was standing there talking to him. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rough and hollow. The kind of lie people tell when they're anything but fine. Manny glanced at the car. "Doesn't look fine. How long have you been stuck here?" The man shrugged. "Couple hours, maybe 3, I don't know anymore. 3 hours." Manny frowned. And nobody stopped. The man let out a bitter laugh. "People don't stop. Not at this hour. Not in this neighborhood." He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "Can't blame them. I wouldn't stop either if I saw some random guy on the side of the road." Manny crouched down so they were at eye level. "What happened?" The man hesitated, like he was deciding whether it was even worth explaining. Then he sighed. "Engine died."
Just died.
"Middle of nowhere. I tried calling a tow truck, but they said it'd be 4, maybe 5 hours. And I don't have that kind of time." His voice cracked just a little. "My daughter's in the hospital, 20 minutes from here. She had an emergency surgery this afternoon, and I've been trying to get there all night." Manny's chest tightened. "I took the bus to work this morning because my car was acting up." The man continued. "But then I got the call about my daughter and I panicked. Borrowed this piece of junk from a coworker just to get to her. Didn't even make it halfway." He looked down at his hands, covered in engine grease from trying to fix something he didn't know how to fix. "I called my wife. She's at the hospital with our daughter. Told her I'd be there soon." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "That was 3 hours ago. She keeps texting me asking where I am and I don't even know what to tell her anymore." Manny stayed quiet, just listening. The man rubbed his eyes. "I tried calling a cab. No one's picking up. Rideshare apps aren't working out here. I even tried walking, but it's too far and I'm just..." He trailed off. "I'm just tired, man. I'm so tired." Manny noticed the man's phone on the ground next to him. Cracked screen. Battery icon blinking red. "How old is your daughter?" Manny asked gently. 7. The man's voice broke completely now. "She's 7 years old and she's scared and she doesn't understand why her dad isn't there." He covered his face with his hands. "I promised her I'd be there when she woke up. I promised." The weight of that promise hung in the air between them. Manny stood up slowly. He looked down the empty street. Not a single car in sight. No help coming. No miracle on the way. Just a father who'd run out of options and a broken, down car that wasn't going anywhere. Most people would have offered sympathy. Maybe called someone. Wished him luck and walked away feeling like they'd done their part. But Manny had spent his whole life around people like this. People working 2 jobs just to survive. People one bad day away from disaster. People who kept promises to their kids no matter what it cost them. He knew what this man needed. And it wasn't sympathy. Would you stop your entire night to help a complete stranger get to their daughter? Or would you tell yourself it's not your responsibility and keep driving? Manny stood there for a moment, looking at this broken man sitting on a curb in the middle of the night. Every logical part of his brain was telling him to be careful, to think this through. It was late. He was exhausted. His body ached from training. He had his own responsibilities waiting at home, his wife expecting him. His kids probably already asleep, but he'd promised to check on them before bed. And there was always that voice, the one that whispers in the back of your mind when you're about to help a stranger. What if this is a setup? What if he's lying? What if there's someone waiting in the shadows? What if this goes wrong and you end up on the news for all the wrong reasons? Manny had heard the stories. Famous people getting robbed, scammed, taken advantage of. People see a celebrity and suddenly their problem becomes an opportunity. His security team had warned him about this exact kind of situation. Don't stop for strangers. Don't put yourself in vulnerable positions. You're a target now, whether you like it or not. The smart thing would be to call the police. Or a tow service. Hand the guy some cash for a cab and let professionals handle it. That's what most people would do. That's what most people would call generous. But Manny looked at this man's face again. Really looked at it. The desperation wasn't fake. You can't fake that kind of exhaustion, that kind of defeat. And something about the way he talked about his daughter. The way his voice broke when he said her name. Manny knew that voice. He'd heard it in his own father's voice years ago. Back in the Philippines. Back when they had nothing. When his dad would work all day in the heat and come home with barely enough money to feed the family. He remembered being 7 years old himself. Sick with fever. His mom holding him while his dad paced the floor, trying to figure out how to pay for medicine they couldn't afford. He remembered the neighbor who helped them that night, an old man who didn't have much either but gave them what he could. Didn't ask questions. Didn't hesitate. Just saw a family in trouble and decided that mattered more than his own convenience. Manny never forgot that man's face, and he'd promised himself something back then. If he ever made it out, if he ever had enough, if he ever became someone who could help instead of someone who needed help, he wouldn't walk away. But this wasn't just about a promise he made to himself as a kid. This was about right now. This moment. This choice. He could feel his driver watching him from the car, probably confused, probably worried, probably thinking the same things Manny was thinking. Time was ticking. That man's daughter was in a hospital bed, 20 minutes away, wondering where her father was. Every minute Manny stood here, deciding, was another minute that little girl waited. And suddenly all the logical arguments didn't matter anymore. The fear didn't matter. The inconvenience didn't matter. The what-ifs didn't matter, because Manny had spent his entire life fighting. In rings, in stadiums, in front of millions of people. But the hardest fights were never the ones in front of cameras. They were the quiet ones. The private ones. The moments where nobody's watching, and you have to decide who you really are when there's no applause waiting at the end. Strength isn't just about how hard you can punch. It's not about titles or belts or fame. Real strength is choosing compassion when it's inconvenient, when it's risky, when it costs you something. Real strength is seeing someone who needs help and deciding their crisis matters more than your comfort. Manny took a deep breath. He walked back to his car, opened the door, leaned in and said something quietly to his driver. The driver's eyes went wide, started to protest, but Manny shook his head. His mind was made up. He walked back to the man on the curb and crouched down again. "What's your daughter's name?" he asked. The man looked up, confused by the question. "Maria."
"Her name is Maria," Manny nodded. "What?"
"Come on, get up." "What?" "I'm taking you to her." The man stared at Manny like he'd just spoken a foreign language.
"What? No, I can't ask you to do that. I don't even know you."
"You don't need to know me," Manny said simply. "You need to get to your daughter. So let's go." The man shook his head, overwhelmed. "But my car. I can't just leave it here. We'll deal with the car later. Right now Maria needs her dad. Come on." Slowly the man stood up. His legs were stiff from sitting on that curb for hours. He looked at Manny's face, really looked at him for the first time, and something flickered in his eyes. A hint of recognition. But he was too tired and too worried to process it. They started walking toward Manny's car when suddenly the man stopped. "Wet. My wallet. I left my wallet in my car. My ID. Everything." He turned back, stumbling toward his broken vehicle. Manny followed him. Watched as the man dug through the front seat, frantic, tossing papers and empty coffee cups around. "It's not here. I thought I..." He checked the glove compartment. Under the seats, his movements getting more desperate. No. "What's wrong? My wallet's gone. I had it when I stopped." "I know I did." The man's voice climbed higher. "Someone must have taken it while I was trying to fix the engine. I was under the hood for like 20 minutes and I didn't even think." His hospital ID badge. His driver's license. The little bit of cash he had left. Gone. "They won't let me see her without ID," the man said, panic setting in. "The hospital has strict rules. You have to show identification to get into the ICU and I don't have anything." Manny put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out. Let's just get there first." They got into the car. The man sat in the back seat next to Manny, his hands shaking. The driver pulled away from the curb, heading toward the hospital. For a few minutes, nobody spoke. The man stared out the window, his knee bouncing nervously. Then he pulled out his dying phone and called his wife. "Honey? Yeah, I'm on my way, I know. I'm sorry. No, the car died, but someone's giving me a ride. I'll be there soon." He paused, listening. His face went pale. "What? When? How bad?" Manny watched the man's entire body tense. Okay, I'm coming. Tell her daddy's coming." He hung up and pressed his forehead against the window. Her fever spiked. "She's asking for me and they can't get it down." "How far are we?" Manny asked the driver. 15 minutes, sir. Make it 10. The car accelerated. They wove through empty streets, traffic lights blinking yellow in the dead of night. The man was breathing hard now, almost hyperventilating. "This is my fault. I should have been there. I should have taken the day off work, but we needed the money and I thought..." "Stop," Manny said firmly but gently. "You're doing everything you can. You're a good father. You don't know that? You don't know me. I know you've been sitting on a curb for 3 hours trying to get to your kid. I know enough. They were closed now. The hospital appeared in the distance, lit up against the dark sky. But as they pulled into the parking lot, a security guard stepped out of the booth, holding up his hand for them to stop. The driver rolled down his window. Visiting hours are over, the guard said. Emergency room entrance only unless you're staff. My daughter's in the ICU. The man said desperately from the back seat. I need to get to her. You'll have to go through the main entrance and check in. They'll direct you. But that takes forever and she's... Hospital policy, sir. The man started to get out of the car, but the guard blocked his path. Sir, I need to see your visitor badge or ID before you can enter this lot. I don't have it. It was stolen. But my daughter Maria is in room. Without proper identification, I can't let you pass this point. You'll need to go to the main entrance and fill out paperwork. The man's voice cracked completely. Please. My daughter is 7 years old and she's scared and her fever is spiking and I promised her I'd be there. The guard didn't budge. Just doing his job. Following the rules. And that's when Manny opened his door and stepped out. Have you ever watched someone follow the rules so strictly that they forgot about basic human compassion? What would you have done in that moment? Manny stepped out of the car calmly. No rush. No aggression. Just steady and deliberate. He walked around to where the security guard stood blocking the man's path. Excuse me, Manny said quietly. Is there someone we can talk to about this? The guard looked at him, annoyed at first. Just another person trying to bend the rules. But then his eyes went wide. What are you? I am, Manny said simply. But right now that doesn't matter. What matters is this man's daughter is upstairs and she needs her father. The guard stammered. Mr. Pacquiao. I'm a huge fan, but I still have protocols. I can't just... I understand. You're doing your job. I respect that. Manny's voice stayed calm, respectful. But I'm asking you to help us find a solution. This man's wallet was stolen. He has no ID. But his daughter is in the ICU and her condition just got worse. There has to be a way. The guard shifted uncomfortably. I'd need to verify his identity somehow. Call the floor. Confirm he's actually the father. Then let's do that, Manny said. Right now, make the call. The guard hesitated. Security, oh security, to ICU nurses station. I need verification on a patient. Last name. The man's voice shook. Rodriguez, Maria Rodriguez. 7 years old. The radio crackled. A nurse's voice came through. Yes, we have a Maria Rodriguez. What's this about? Her father is here, but he doesn't have ID. Can you confirm patient's father's name? Roberto Rodriguez. Why isn't he up here? His wife said he was on his way over an hour ago. The man, Roberto, leaned toward the radio. I'm here. I'm right here. Please, I just need to see my daughter. There was a pause. Then the nurse's voice softened. Security, can you please escort Mr. Rodriguez up immediately? His daughter's been asking for him. The guard looked conflicted. Policy versus compassion. He glanced at Manny, then at Roberto's desperate face. All right, he said finally, but I'm walking you up personally. And you, he pointed at Manny, you're vouching for him. Completely. Manny said without hesitation. They hurried through the parking lot toward the entrance. Roberto could barely keep up, his exhaustion hitting him all at once now that he was so close. Inside the hospital, the fluorescent lights were harsh after the darkness outside. A few late-night staff members glanced up as they passed. Did a double take when they saw Manny, one nurse gasped. Pulled out her phone. Not now. Manny said gently but firmly, keeping pace with Roberto. They reached the elevator. Roberto pressed the button over and over like it would make it come faster. When the doors finally opened, they stepped inside. The guard, Roberto, and Manny. Roberto was shaking. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you.
Don't thank me yet, Manny said.
Just get to your daughter. The elevator climbed. 4th floor, 6th. The doors opened to the ICU ward. Sterile, quiet. The beeping of machines echoing down the hallway. A woman stood near the nurse's station. Mid-40s. Eyes red from crying. The moment she saw Roberto, she ran toward him. Where were you? She sobbed, hitting his chest weakly. Where were you? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The car broke down and he held her tight. How is she? Scared. Crying. Asking for you. His wife pulled back, wiping her eyes. Then she noticed Manny standing there. Her mouth opened but no words came out. Go, Manny said to Roberto. She's waiting. Roberto nodded, grabbed his wife's hand, and they rushed down the hall toward their daughter's room. Manny stood there in the hallway, the security guard beside him, still processing everything that just happened. You didn't have to do all this, the guard said quietly. Yes, I did, Manny replied. Down the hall, through a small window in one of the room doors, Manny could see Roberto lean over a hospital bed. A little girl's arms reached up and wrapped around her father's neck. Even from this distance, you could see Roberto's shoulders shaking as he held his daughter. The guard wiped his own eyes. I've worked here 8 years. Never seen anything like this. A few nurses had gathered, watching from a distance. One of them had her phone out, recording. Manny noticed but didn't stop her. Mr. Pacquiao, one of the nurses approached slowly. Can I just say, what you did tonight, that family will never forget this. Manny shook his head. I didn't do anything special. I just gave someone a ride. But everyone in that hallway knew it was more than that. The nurse smiled. Would you mind if we took a picture? Just quickly. Manny glanced toward Maria's room one more time. Roberto was sitting beside her bed now, holding her small hand, his wife on the other side. A family together again. One picture, Manny said. Then I need to get home to my own family. Real power isn't about strength or fame. It's about using whatever you have, whoever you are, to help someone who needs it. Not for recognition. Not for applause. Just because it's right. The nurses gathered around Manny in the hallway. Quick photos. Quiet thank yous. He smiled politely, shook a few hands, but kept it brief. He could see Roberto through the window still holding his daughter. That was what mattered. Not the photos. Not the recognition. Manny nodded to the security guard and headed back toward the elevator. As he walked through the hospital lobby, a janitor mopping the floor looked up. Recognized him. Stopped what he was doing. Pac-Man, he whispered. Manny put a finger to his lips and smiled. Keep it quiet. The janitor grinned and gave him a thumbs up. Outside, the cool night air hit Manny's face. His driver was waiting by the car and Manny slid into the back seat, suddenly feeling every bit of exhaustion from the day. Home, sir? The driver asked.
Yeah.
Home. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Manny looked back at the hospital one more time. Lights still glowing, lives being saved, families being reunited. He checked his phone. His wife had texted again asking where he was. He typed back, on my way. Had to help someone. Tell you when I get there. She replied with a heart emoji. She knew him well enough not to ask questions. She knew he couldn't drive past someone in trouble. The car drove through empty streets. Manny leaned his head against the window and closed his eyes. He thought about Roberto. About Maria. About how close that man came to missing the moment his daughter needed him most. All because of a broken down car and a stolen wallet. How many people had driven past Roberto tonight? 50. How many people saw him sitting there and decided it wasn't their problem? Manny understood. People are scared. They're tired. They have their own lives, their own problems. But that's exactly why moments like this matter. Because when everyone decides it's not their responsibility, who's left to help? When Manny finally got home, his house was quiet. His kids were asleep. His wife waited up for him in the living room. Long night? She asked. Very long. He sat down beside her and told her everything. The broken car, the desperate father. The little girl. His wife listened, then smiled softly. You're a good man. I just did what anyone should do, but most people don't. Manny shrugged. Then maybe they should. He went upstairs and checked on his own kids. Sleeping peacefully in their beds. Safe. Healthy, lucky. He thought about Maria in that hospital bed, about how Roberto's face looked when he finally got to hold her. That's what matters in life. Not championships. Not fame, not money. Just being there for the people who need you. By the next morning, Manny had almost forgotten about the whole thing. He was back in the gym training. Business as usual. But the nurses hadn't forgotten. The security guard hadn't forgotten. Someone posted the video they'd recorded. Manny walking through the hospital with Roberto. The caption read, Manny Pacquiao stopped his entire night to help a stranger get to his sick daughter. Within hours it had thousands of views. Then tens of thousands. Then millions. Comments poured in from around the world. This is what a real champion looks like. He didn't do this for cameras. He did it because it was right. We need more people like this in the world. News outlets picked it up. Sports channels. International media. Everyone wanted to know the story behind the video. Reporters called Roberto. Asked him what happened. He told them everything, his voice still shaking with gratitude. I was ready to give up. Roberto said in one interview. I'd been sitting there for hours and nobody stopped. Nobody cared. And then this man, this world champion, he didn't just stop. He took me to my daughter himself. He made sure I got to her. The reporter asked Roberto if he knew who Manny Pacquiao was when he stopped to help. Roberto laughed. Honestly, no. I was too tired and too worried to even look at his face. I just knew someone finally cared enough to stop. That's what made the story spread even faster. Manny didn't help Roberto because people were watching. He didn't do it for recognition or publicity or to build his brand. He did it because a father needed to get to his daughter, and Manny had the ability to make that happen. No cameras at the moment it mattered most. No audience. No applause. Just a choice. The video ended up with over 50 million views across all platforms. But Manny never shared it himself. Never reposted it. Never commented on it. When reporters asked him about it during his next press conference, he kept it simple. I saw someone who needed help. So I helped. That's it. But you went out of your way. You could have just called him a cab. Manny shook his head. His daughter needed him right then. Not in an hour. Right then. Sometimes people need more than money or a phone call. They need someone to actually show up. Because here's what that night proved. What went viral wasn't just a good deed. It was a reminder. Champions aren't just built in gyms and rings. They're revealed in quiet moments. In parking lots, on empty streets. In hospital hallways. When the world isn't watching, and there's nothing to gain except knowing you did the right thing. That's what real strength looks like. Not how hard you can punch, but how quickly you'll stop to help someone who's fallen. We've got more incredible true stories like this coming your way. Stories that remind us what really matters. Drop a comment and tell us which part of this story hit you the hardest. Was it when Roberta broke down on the curb? When Manny made the choice to stop? When that little girl finally got to see her father? And here's the real question. If you were driving home late at night, exhausted, ready to collapse into bed, and you saw someone sitting alone on the side of the road, would you stop? Would you actually stop? Be honest with yourself. Because the world needs more people who will.